Hello, welcome to this video by Indicator Vault. And in this video today, we are going to go over the Natural Divergence Indicator. And what this is using is the Natural Momentum Indicator, which is another one of Indicator Vault's indicators. But what has been done, it is the option of divergences has been added to it. Obviously, as the name implies, and it finds both, bearish and bullish divergences, and even hidden divergences, both bullish and bearish. As we can see here in this example, the H for both of these is representing the hidden divergence. And what's great about the natural momentum indicator, in general, is it is great. As the name suggests, showing you where momentum is heading towards in the market. One, with the, we have the zero line separating the blue and the red shaded areas, but also the extra confluence of also picking up smaller momentum changes with this green and red line on top or on bottom. And so adding the divergences to this just makes it, an extra powerful indicator with these multiple confirmations. And we're going to go over some examples here and how to use this, just with some other very simple price action and other technical tips and tricks to use this to catch, strong impulsive moves. And so here in our first example, see I've got the 4-hour chart of the S&P 500 futures, E-mini futures. And something I like to do is I use fibs a lot to find premium and discount of a range. But something else you can use them for is adding extra levels to find zones to trade from. And specifically, I like to use the 1.27 between the 1.68. And what this does is, so you find your range. We have a high here, the most recent high, to the low created. So that's our range. And we can see here, as the bearish divergence is being found, here I'll hide this just for a quick second. We see that once this candle closes is when the natural divergence was picking up on the divergence right as this candle closes. Then we see it poke up into the zone, the potential reversal zone. And this again is you find your range. And if we're expecting it to maybe reach outside of the range, it normally is not going to expand farther than here. If we see price action closing strong or maybe long wicks above the 1.68, then typically that might signal continuations to the upside. So if we're expecting bearishness, we can reasonably expect this zone to hold. It's not typically going to expand past the 1.27 and 1.618 levels. And so that's already a confirmation from our recent range, from this high to this low. And then right as is doing that, we find bearish divergence showing here. And then what happens just a couple candles later, right after this one, we now have the line turning red, indicating bearish momentum to the downside. Just another confirmation, and that is exactly what we see here. Very strong impulsive move to the downside. And another great thing about this indicator is, since it's showing you momentum, then you can ride the wave until you see it start to change again. So we see it here. And of course, price action concepts can tell you to take profits here, which is, great to do. This is the most, probably the closest low maybe potentially this one. But, if you're expecting a strong bearish move, this would be the first target. However, the natural momentum indicator part of this is showing you could have still stayed in for this huge move down as well. This very large bearish candle until it turns green, and then showing you, okay, this expansion down is coming to an end very soon. Either expect maybe a strong retracement or at least some consolidation that you may not want to sit through. And so this was great, showing it right here, right before the strong move started, and then showing right here where to take profits before we got this strong retracement back up. And now here we are, still on the S&P 500. We are now on the 1 hour chart. And I just put a couple EMAs here. I have the 50 and the 100 EMA on the chart. And these are very commonly used to help determine trend. So for instance, you're going to see a lot of divergences show here at the indicator, right? Got all these. And so what is a great way to filter out some of the noise and find the most high probability ones? Well, that's obviously going to be to find where the trend is. In an uptrend, you would want to filter out the bearish signals and really put emphasis on the bullish ones being the most probable to play out. And so a very common way to just use these is once the, for instance, when the 100 is above the 50, like we see here, that's going to give you a downtrend bias. And then once they switch, first we see, that's how it is here, 100 above the 50. We see this strong move up, flipping them. And so now we see the 50 is above the 100. And that is now flipping the bias towards an uptrend. And what do we see here? A bullish divergence. So, of course, we don't see bearish divergences showing here right now, but once this flips here, it is probably a great idea to then filter out the bearish ones. Not that there can't be bearish plays to the downside for short ones, but the highest probability is for the bullish ones now. And then, of course, what do we see here? The strong move correlating with this strong move down. And then right as the red line is flipping to green, we get that bullish divergence paired with, again, the moving averages flipping, where the 50 is now above the 100, giving us more of a bullish bias. And of course, this one plays out great. If you got in here alone, once the divergence was shown, this is a great move up on the hourly chart. But look here, even though we do see, the red line form, if we're expecting bullishness, because again, we have the confirmation of the MAs telling us we can expect some more move to the upside, well then we can probably expect an expansive move up into the blue zone area, just like these here. And so we haven't got that yet. And so, sure, this is a great place to take profits, especially in this large gap here, where it's reasonable to expect some consolidation. But the natural momentum indicator is showing that there's still the possibility for another expansive move up. And so that's, of course, what we see here. And this high does eventually get taken right here. Right as we see it start to cool off, we see a little bit of a red line here, saying that, it's starting to cool off, or at least to expect maybe some consolidation. We see this another short green here, and then it turns red again after the strong move up, especially after this second red showing. I would have been taking major profits, if not fully been out, especially considering that it had already taken this high. And so a great move here, just using some simple moving average logic and then pinpointing where the divergence is shown, and then the natural momentum indicator giving us great insight as to exactly how far we can stay in the trade. So an incredible move up here just on the hourly chart alone. And then for the last example, now on the NASDAQ futures chart, I'm on the 30-minute time frame and got the natural divergence on here. And this is another great indicator from Indicator Vault that I think pairs well with this. However, please note, it's not going to give as many signals as some of the others. However, these are going to be extremely high probability. And of course, that's pairing it with the supply demand pro as we see up here. And this is giving specific zones, obviously supply or demand zones. And these zones are very strong in and of themselves. But as we see here, if you can pair it with divergences happening inside the zone. So for instance, we see this demand zone paint right here, forming here, a short move up. And then as it is retesting the zone at the exact same time, we now have this bullish divergence found from the natural divergence indicator. And so that alone, these two confluences are going to be extremely powerful. And as we can see, even just from today's price action, this initial strong move up, so many points, a little bit of consolidation, and even some more movement up right here. And so, like I said, these may not line up all the time. However, when you find these form in these zones, this is going to be a great confirmation for strong moves, not even just, little moves. You're going to find very strong impulsive moves form from here. And so as we can even see here, even though this zone hasn't been retested, we saw bearish divergence form here. We got this move down, this turncoat zone. And so it's really just a matter of waiting. If we see one of these retested with divergence forming inside the zone again, for me, that would be very powerful confirmation for an impulsive move away from either of these zones, especially if they have not been retested yet, such as this one for the supply zone and some of these other back here. So this is a great one to pair with it as well. And so I hope this video was helpful. This is the Natural Divergence Indicator. And until next time, best of luck trading.